No credits when it opens. No soft piano music. Only the buzz of fluorescent courtroom light and the hard echo of heels on old wooden floors. Christine walked into the courtroom with something the world had grown familiar with, a blue binder, but this time not the original alone. This time it was thicker, blown up, fortified by color, coded tabs, legal stamps, and something harder than bitterness. Evidence. Kody sat rigidly at the defense table, hands clasped, lips compressed, with an attorney who resembled a crisis manager rather than a litigator on either side. Robin sat next to him, but one row back, as if even she didn't want to be at the front of this breakdown. The courtroom seemed smaller this time. Not that it was, but power had moved, and everyone could sense it. The judge looked down over the rim of his glasses. We are present to hear closing arguments about custodial split and property demands between Mr. Brown and Christine, he said in a smooth voice. Mrs. Brown, do you have any other documents? Christine stood up with no hesitation. Yes, Your Honor, she declared. Steady voice, binder clutched tightly like a sword waiting to be drawn. She gave it to the clerk. Everything we went over is in here and more, including evidence of financial hiding, coercive control, and a custody order Kody asked me to sign, and then pretended never happened. And in an instant, the courtroom shifted. What was going to be a simple closing had become something eruptive. Kody fidgeted in his seat, his face sweaty. She is inventing this, he grumbled. Christine shifted her head ever so slightly, but her eyes didn't flutter. You instructed me to sign that contract in front of our counselor, she spoke. I was afraid, and you knew I was, but I made a copy. You didn't realize I scanned it and sent one to my sister, just in case. Robin's breath snagged, almost silent, but enough for the room to hear. The judge cleared his throat. We'll take a 5-minute recess while I scan the contents of this binder, he said. Christine folded her hands. Kody stood over to whisper something into his lawyer's ear, but the lawyer didn't answer. He just looked at the binder as if it had suddenly become a bomb. And in a way, it had. The recess that followed wasn't calm. It was precise. Christine remained still, while the judge riffled through the binder. The rustle of paper, the only noise in the room. Kody shifted, his jaw locked so hard his neck quivered. The attorney next to him whispered, You didn't share this custody draft with me? Kody didn't respond. He just looked straight ahead, not at Christine. But Christine didn't require that he look. She'd existed for years in the silence of his evasion. The judge frowned. Mrs. Brown, he started deliberately. This draft contract, you say Mr. Brown requested you sign this in private? Christine rose. Yes, Your Honor, in the counselor's office. No witnesses other than the counselor. But I didn't merely sign it. I made a copy. She faced Kody, as unyielding as a glacier. You promised me it would make parenting easier if things ever got out of hand. Then you abandoned the paper and refused to admit you wrote it for 9 years. Kody blanched. Robin appeared as though she wished she could disappear. The courtroom didn't budge. Even the court clerk's fingers had ceased moving. The judge went on. This paper gives you sole legal custody in case of separation. Joint physical custody could only be negotiated if Mr. Brown filed legal guardianship and primary residence proof. He never did file those, right? Christine nodded. Right, Your Honor, and the document is signed and time-stamped. She showed her phone. I also have the email from the therapist saying that she watched us go over it. Kody got up finally. I want to make it very clear that I never thought of this as binding. It was an emotional conversation, not a legal agreement. The judge narrowed his eyes. Mr. Brown, your signature is here, and unless you're stating this was forged. No, Kody interrupted quickly. I'm not accusing her of forgery. then it is admissible, the judge said plainly. Christine didn't gloat. She didn't need to. The paper cried out more loudly than any courtroom tantrum ever had. Robin breathed softly. Why didn't you tell me about that deal? Kody did not answer. He just slumped back in his chair as the judge went on. In addition, this binder contains property records from the Flagstaff compound. Mrs. Brown, can you account for why there was a difference between what was publicly posted and what was privately transferred? Christine stood again. Yes. Kody transferred the property deed into an LLC in Robin's maiden name. He indicated to the family that it was for tax purposes, but the deed eliminated all of the other spouses, including me. The judge appeared shocked. And this transfer was completed after you broke up. Yes, he waited until after I left and then altered the ownership trail. The judge tapped his pen twice. The noise rang out like a gavel. Then Mr. Brown. The court is willing to look at concealment of assets. Mrs. Brown, the judge had said softly. If your testimony holds, then Mr. Brown no longer has legal control over anything. And in that instant, Kody didn't seem like a husband or even a father. He resembled a man who suddenly understood his kingdom was founded on quicksand. The judge pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose, leaned forward, and pulled open the tab labeled. Christine observed him like a woman who'd practiced this moment in her mind times. It wasn't revenge. It was revelation. What was revealed in the tab section was scanned emails, escrow records, and notary logs. Every page detailed the movement of a community Flagstaff lot initially bought under family trust, took place unbeknownst to anyone into a secret shell LLC. That LLC, the documents claimed, was run by Robin Brown exclusively. Kody finally spoke. We said it was temporary until the taxes were resolved. Christine left the family. She walked away. What was she expecting me to do? Christine stood. Did you not inform anyone you were transferring the property? Not me, not Janelle, not Mary. And you did it after you suspended our access to the joint bank account. The courtroom was on edge. The judge looked up at the paper. Mrs. Brown, you are claiming your name was taken off of the family account without notice. Yes. In January of the same week the deed switched, Kody interrupted. It was a mad time. We were breaking up. I was defending what remained. You were amassing, Christine replied, and I have evidence. She dug into her bag and produced a flash drive. The moment seemed like a movie. Everyone sensed the change. Christine presented it to the clerk. Your Honor, this is a recording of a phone call that I had with our financial advisor. I called to ask about my access being taken away. The advisor said Kody and Robin were the only ones with authorization as of the RD of January. The judge motioned to the technician. Play it. The room was filled with the unmistakable ring of a speakerphone. Christine's voice came first, strained but smooth. Hello. I am only trying to figure out why I am unable to log in to our shared account. The advisor's voice replied, Hi, Christine. Since this month, your access was revoked according to internal authorization. I am not able to share the reasons unless both account owners are with me. Kody stared at his lap. The judge stopped playback. Mr. Brown, did you authorize this modification? Kody didn't reply. The judge again repeated himself. Did you cut off financial access to Mrs. Brown when she was still a legal trustee of the family account? Kody finally stood up. Yes, he breathed. But I had a reason. And what was the reason? The judge inquired. She left. She was still your legal wife at the time of the transfer. The judge responded icily. This court now has reasons to investigate fiduciary misconduct. Christine sat, drawing slow breaths. The sentences hung heavy, but not nearly as heavy as the years they totaled. In that one instant, the courtroom witnessed it, not simply a mother defending her children or a wife reclaiming herself. They witnessed a woman who had been erased monetarily, silently, methodically, while the world watched their family on television and described it as love. And now the judge was no longer simply presiding over a divorce case. He was probing a collapse, a lie at a time, a login at a time, a tab on the binder at a time. When the flash drive was plugged in and sealed into evidence, the courtroom wasn't merely silent. It was chilling. Kody's silence was more eloquent than any tantrum could have been. The judge signaled to continue, turning now to the tab labeled custody pre-separation. It was packed with school reports, medical visit records, and travel permits, each signed exclusively by Christine, each establishing incontestable fact. Kody had not been a participating parent for years. The judge fixed him with a direct stare. Mr. Brown, how frequently did you live with your minor children during the months prior to this filing? Kody hesitated, then glanced at his lawyer. I did have visitations, but I was also taking care of other family obligations. Can you provide documentation? No, Kody grumbled. Christine stood. Your Honor, I can provide a calendar that indicates he hasn't shown up to a single pediatric appointment or school meeting since March of. She moved closer, retrieving a second document from her binder. It was a printed screenshot. Her and Kody's group text, unread, unopened, dated more than a year ago. This is when truly had a fever of, I told him. He never responded. Robin put her hand over her mouth. Janelle and Mary weren't in the room, but you felt like they were there, absent, sounding louder than presence ever could. The judge shifted in his seat. So, you are claiming Mr. Brown was not actively involved in everyday parenting 2 years in a row, unless you count never received phone calls, Christine replied, her voice shaking, but barely. Then, as if being drawn to gravity or conscience, Kody finally broke his silence. Not loudly, not boastfully, but like a man disintegrating. I was overwhelmed. I didn't know how to be a father to children who didn't share the same roof. The judge replied flatly, Mr. Brown, that is the reality of joint custody, not a reason to lose it. Then Christine did something nobody anticipated. She proceeded to the middle of the courtroom and retrieved a folded paper from her pocket. This, she said, is a list written by my daughter the evening that she heard Kody and Robin talking. She gave it to the clerk. The judge read it out. If she leaves, we cut her out. No more help, no more coverage, no more sharing. She decided this, so let her pay. The judge's eyes fluttered in surprise. Whose voice is this speaking of? Christine remained silent. She didn't have to. Everyone already knew. Kody's face constricted like a rope tightening around something he couldn't any longer deny. The courtroom no longer witnessed a father who battled for his family. They witnessed a man struggling to defend a picture that no longer was. Also now, the only decision remaining was not whether Christine would gain custody, but how much more the court would give her in exchange. The judge set the crumpled note aside and indicated the next exhibit. Christine didn't delay. She reached into her binder and pulled out a sheet of paper with a document sealed in a plastic sleeve. An email printed out, dated the th of April. This, she asserted, is what changed everything for me. She showed it to the court clerk. It is from Kody's financial planner by mistake. It was addressed to him. It was CC'd to me because I was still on one of the LLCs, and what I read sickened me. The judge put on a pair of reading glasses and started reading in a low, soothing voice. As agreed upon at our last meeting, reorganization of the Coyote Pass asset tree needs to be completed prior to Christine's filing. Robin is still the best beneficiary as a result of her credit score, as well as legal access. The draft agreement omits Christine and Janelle per your instruction. The room went still. Kody leaned forward, his voice low and defensive. That was a planning document. It wasn't executed. It wasn't. The judge raised a hand. Is your name listed as the party instructing these omissions? Kody swallowed. Undefined, yes. Undefined, but it was just strategy. Christine didn't flinch. Undefined. You told me you were protecting our assets for the kids. Undefined. You lied. You were sending everything to Robin behind our backs. Robin looked at the desk in front of her, not moving. Undefined it not, even blinking. The judge flipped over the email. There is a second page here. A sentence that says, make sure Christine's post-separation paperwork is digitally cleaned before transfer. Kody's mouth fell open, but he made no sound. Undefined. Would you like to explain that? Undefined. The judge asked. I didn't write it. It was the planner's testimony. And yet you never stopped him, Christine responded, her tone gentle but weighty. That was when the court no longer saw Kody Brown as irresponsible, but started seeing him as calculated. The judge jotted a note on his pad. Undefined that this corresponds with the revocation of access from the joint account, the unauthorized transfers of deeds, and the neglect of custody already proven. This is not a question of separation anymore. Undefined it is a question of erasure by design. Kody's lawyer stood. Your Honor, I need to object to the framing. Your client utilized corporate structures to divert marital assets and gaslit his wife into believing it was for the kids. You can sit down, the judge barked. Christine, however, stood a little taller and pulled out a final document from her binder for this meeting. And here, she said, handing it forward, is the letter Kody wrote me, the one he forgot I still had undefined in it. He promised me the Flagstaff house would be in my name within 3 years. That never came to pass. The judge read it quietly, then slowly nodded. This court now has reason to grant full custodial responsibility to Mrs. Brown and move forward with examining asset reassignment. And in a move that didn't just take away credibility from Kody, but started the process of taking away everything he once had control of, the court moved forward. The courtroom no longer had the scent of cedar and paper. It had the scent of unraveling power, the kind that had reigned quietly for decades and now rested exposed in fluorescent light. Kody sat still, his shoulders hunched in a way that no longer seemed like defiance, but defeat. And Christine? She wasn't smug. She wasn't smiling. She just sat in the room like a woman who'd already grieved the loss, already weathered the aftermath, and now just had to ensure the truth found its way onto the record. The judge raised the binder again. Now, facing the tab labeled Custodial Clauses Face Supplemental. Within were signed letters from 2 principals at the attesting that Christine was the exclusive emergency contact for her minor children for 4 years. Medical consent forms only had her name on them. Therapist intake forms for Jezebel, and truly verified Kody never had a single session. Brown, the judge inquired, can you tell me why your name is on not a single parenting-related document since Kody cleared his throat. I was taking care of the other children, the older ones. The pandemic made it more difficult to travel. Christine wasn't so much inviting me into their world. Christine's response was cool biting. I invited you to come. You didn't. She pulled out a photo, a printed screenshot of a text conversation. Dad, are you going to come to the parent night? No reply. Then another message. I wish you'd just show up, even if it is uncomfortable. No reply. Christine clutched it in her hand. That is truly. She wept when he did not answer. The judge breathed. It is obvious that this court cannot grant custody to a parent who has relinquished involvement so utterly. Kody attempted to say something, but the words would not come because there was no spin left, no performance to give for. The cameras were not rolling. The family brand was not there to shield him now. And then things got worse. Christine pulled out of the binder one last time that day and pulled out one yellow envelope. This, she explained, was sent to me anonymously 2 weeks ago. I had it authenticated. She gave it to the clerk. The judge took the contents. A one-page document, so labeled Private Property Transfer Fay Robin Brown, LLC. At the bottom, signed by Kody Brown, but the date, the th of February, well after they separated, well after depositions had commenced. Mr. Brown, the judge demanded, voice now stern. Were you still transferring marital property during the time this court had issued the temporary asset freeze? Kody blinked. I didn't think it applied to LLC transfers. It did. The judge replied. And now you violated a standing court order. And that's when it changed. Not with yelling, not with drama, but with a single sentence from the bench. Effective immediately, the judge said, Kody Brown is stripped of decision-making control over any shared marital property. Custody is awarded in full to Christine Brown. The court is taking steps to take over all known assets for investigation. Robin put her hand over her mouth. Christine snapped her binder shut. Kody seemed like a man who just understood control was never a birthright. It was borrowed, and the loan had expired. It didn't come with a gavel slam. It didn't arrive with screaming. The silence following the judge's words was somehow more brutal than any blast. Kody's shoulders sank an inch lower. Robin leaned back like her body had been pushed by the words themselves. And Christine, she exhaled, a breath held for more than a decade, a breath tied to every dismissed concern, every erased voice, every quiet insult wrapped in spiritual manipulation. The judge tapped the folder lightly. I will be issuing a written order within hours, but the oral ruling stands. Mrs. Brown is the only legal guardian of her minor children now. All disputed property will be put on hold until a forensic accounting is finalized. And then he turned to stare at Kody. You no longer control any joint family asset. You, in that one sentence, took away the power structure that created an empire on tape and off. By its very dismantling, Kody's lawyer leaned in. We can file for reconsideration, he whispered. Kody didn't move. He wasn't listening to the law anymore. He was still attempting to wrap his head around what had just exited him, the delusion of power, the version of himself that had brought him this far untouched and unopposed. Now, the room was no longer revolving around him. Indeed, it wasn't even gazing at him. The judge shifted to Christine. Do you have anything further for the record? She stood slowly, reached into her binder one final time, and produced a photograph. A simple one. Just a snapshot of her daughter sitting on a porch, barefoot, eating watermelon, laughing. Only this, she said. This is what I'm protecting. Not assets, not revenge. Just this moment, their future. The judge nodded, and just like that, Kody Brown became invisible, the man who'd been at the center of the Sister Wives universe for more than a decade. The decision maker, the husband, the patriarch, was no longer part of the equation, legally, financially, parentally gone, not erased, but finally made to account. Robin finally broke her silence. She spoke softly. So what now? She whispered. Christine gazed at her, but not unkindly. Now, she replied. Now you understand what it is like to be left out of the plan because the truth was never in the binder. It was in the omission of Kody's name from all that mattered. And the court finally did too. The judge stood. Court will recess until post-verdict compliance review. As he stepped off the bench, Christine collected her binder, not like a trophy, but like a shield she no longer needed to wield. Kody remained motionless for the first time in his public career. No one required him to. The courtroom drained slowly like a death procession everyone was reluctant to witness. Reporters in the back row jotted down headlines, but even they were subdued. The tone had changed not only against Kody, but against the whole mythos he had created. For years, he'd been dictating a public narrative, one man for wives and divine plan. But today, the court pulled the veil off of that illusion with surgical acuity. What was left in its wake wasn't merely a man who lacked control. It was a woman who now possessed the power of her own narrative. As Christine walked into the corridor, her lawyer standing beside her, a silence trailed behind her like a cloud. Reporters did not yell questions. Cameras did not flash. Even the courthouse employees averted their faces, as if the walls themselves honored what had transpired. Within the courtroom, Robin stayed behind, her eyes unfocused. Her shoulders slumped. "Kody," she whispered, "you said that we were protected." Kody didn't reply. His lips moved, but there was no sound. The man who once prided himself on his power, who defined discipline as spiritual leadership, was now a statue in his own devastation. Robin addressed the judge's clerk, her voice breaking. "There is nothing we can do, nothing at all." The clerk said nothing, because the court had already decided, and it hadn't merely taken away custody or possessions from Kody. It had taken away from him the privilege of consequence, free authority. Robin sobbed the kind of sobbing that wasn't theatrics. It was empty. She cried over the fantasy of being the chosen one, over the delusion she'd be the exception. And now there was no longer a throne to be split. Outside, Christine didn't sob. She moved steadily towards her car. Her lawyer gave her the formal file copy of the verdict. "Congratulations," he said. Christine glanced down at it, then up at the sky. "It is not a win," she said. "It is a restoration." And then the camera would shift to Kody, remaining in the courtroom, looking at the empty space Christine once occupied, the space that had previously operated around him, the space he never imagined that he could lose. The judge's aide appeared briefly to deliver to him an envelope, a formal request to attend a separate deposition concerning possible civil sanctions for disobedience of the asset freeze order. Kody didn't even open it, because when Christine left him, she didn't just walk away from him. She walked away from the version of him who never believed this day would arrive. And now, the man who used to say he ruled 4 wives with heavenly order couldn't even rule his own legacy. Christine put the binder in the passenger seat, as if it finally deserved some peace. This wasn't about winning property or custody. This was about reclaiming voice, value, and visibility in a world that instructed her to trade them away in the name of spiritual order. And for the first time in years, she did not feel like one of 4. She felt whole. By morning, the ruling had gone viral. Headlines blared on entertainment websites and regional news. Courtroom Brown gets full custody and property rights. Court freezes Kody's assets. But backstage, the worst blow of all hadn't yet been televised. That arrived when Christine's attorneys filed the petition to cut Kody's rights to the Coyote Pass land entirely, land he had referred to as our legacy.